the first player born in 1993 to appear in the major leagues, and he cranks one high and deep to right field. It is way back. Goodbye. Welcome to the big leagues. A home run in his first major league at bat.
First time up in the big leagues. Here's the 1-1 pitch. He swings and hits a high fly ball to left field. It's deep. It's up and away into the last row of the bleachers. In his first major league at bat.
Welcome to the Prospect Promotion Incentive, a podcast covering the players climbing the minor league ladder on their way to dominate the future of Major League Baseball. Here are your hosts, Beck and Scully.
Hello, everyone. I'm Scully, joined here by Beck. And before we get into the performers of the week, some news and some promos, wanted to plug where you can follow the pod. We're on Twitter at Promo Incentive. We're on YouTube. Second episode to go up on YouTube. The channel is Prospect Promotion Incentive. And then we ask that you please download, rate, subscribe, all of those things. Leave a review on Apple and Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcasts, so that you can keep following the pod. This is our 10th episode. We're here on July 8th. Beck, how are we doing?
We are doing excellent. I just got done watching Jacob Misiorowski strike out 12 Dodgers over 6 innings. And it looks like they're still holding the lead, at least for the moment. So I'll be sweating that out for the duration of this episode.
That would be a 2-0 series lead on the Dodgers if you're able to hold on to that one. We'll get into kind of who was the game changer in that game yesterday against Yamamoto. But you guys are making the Dodgers look weak.
This would be, if the Brewers hold on, this would be the Dodgers' 5th loss in a row. So we caught them at a vulnerable time. Edman's a little banged up. Hernandez isn't playing. Somebody else just hit the IL and they called up James Outman. So it's a rough skid. And of course, in true Dodgers fashion, they have so many pitchers on IL. They've got hurt pitchers coming out of their ears.
Yeah. Well, nice little bounce back for Miz. Sandwiched in there was a bit of a clunker last time out, but that nice to get the confidence going again back home.
Yeah. For sure. Outside of that, Charlotte, my dog, is in the room and shaking some hair out. Outside of that, we've got some stuff to talk about that went on in Major League Baseball over the last week. The Nats, sort of a surprise firing both manager and general manager Mike Rizzo almost exactly a week before they spend the number 1 pick on somebody.
Yeah, I mean, very weird timing, obviously, but would have been even weirder timing if they made that move after they let those two, or, the GM at least, make the big calls around the draft time. So, not ideal by any stretch of the imagination, but the ownership felt like there was a move that needed to be made, and better pre-draft than post-draft. So we'll see what that does, if that changes their approach. You got to imagine the people that were in the room making the plan for the draft are probably going to carry out something similar. But yeah, definitely throws a wrench into what's kind of been a sloppy situation in Washington this year.
Yeah, I saw a graphic showing wins above replacement from draft picks since 2012, and the Nationals were in dead last, and by sort of a concerning margin. Now, you have to give Mike Rizzo credit for absolutely crushing it with the Soto trade. In terms of selling, that's one of the most masterful sell jobs I've seen. No, he didn't do so great on the Scherzer-Turner deal. But if they're looking to sell at the deadline and they don't want it to be Mike Rizzo, right now is the time to do it. And, as it pertains to the draft, it's too late for them to reformulate a draft board. I've been seeing a lot of buzz about Cade Anderson going 1-1 since this was announced. I think that, he's got as good a chance as anybody of going first, but if I were to lay money on who goes 1-1, I think it's Cade Anderson at this point, just based on what I'm seeing. And if that's been the plan for several weeks, it's unlikely to change now.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting draft because I think there's a lot of players to like in the top 10, but there's not a standout number 1 guy. So it's a draft where creativity with how you spend your money is going to be paramount. And having the first pick obviously affords you the most money, but doesn't always, in this case, give you the opportunity to get the best players. Kind of beauty's in the eye of the beholder. You're going to get the best player you like, maybe gets you the best deal and helps you carry out the rest of your draft strategy. But will be very interesting to see what they do at that first overall pick.
It's a very flat draft in the sense that I think there are maybe 5 players who could go first overall. And then there's a stretch of like 10 players that I think you could mix and match reasonably from 5 to 15. And after that, let's say you have the number 1 pick and the associated draft pool. I don't know who you're buying in the second round with your savings. Say you cut a deal at 1-1. There's not a talent sitting out there that might commit to a school that is an obvious sort of choice to try and lure away with a large bonus. That and, those sort of situations require a fair amount of trust between the players' camp and the front office that they're going to execute that and actually make that offer. And so if I were, a player who might be considering taking a larger bonus to forego the opportunity to play college ball, I might be a little bit nervous about doing business with the Nats at the moment. Ultimately, it's the owner who's going to cut that check, but a change like this just, under a week before your name is going to be called is a little unsettling there.
Yeah, makes your future prospects in the game a little uneasy. But, the top of this draft is kind of, if I had to, the 2 strengths I would say are prep shortstops and college arms. I think that will be pretty heavy throughout the first round. It's kind of a light college bat draft. Not a lot of those high floor type profiles. You hope that you've seen a lot more of their development happen at the college level. A lot of those guys, while they have, tantalizing upsides, their problems, they're still flawed players. And usually you stomach some of those flaws with a prep guy and say, yep, I'm still going to chase the upside and we can work on those flaws. The flaws get a little bit more scary after they haven't been improved over 2, 3, or 4 years in college. And I think there's a lot of that going on in this class.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the 2023 draft, and I think all 4 of Cruz, Skeens, Clark, and Langford would be clear 1-1 candidates in this draft class. So that's an outlier class, certainly at the top. But I think it goes to show sort of the shape of this year's draft class. And I think you got it exactly right. It's college or high school shortstops. And to be fair, they're all shortstops in high school, until they're not. In college pitching, I think the clear-cut best college hitter is probably Iva Arquette.
Yeah.
But I could see him going anywhere from like 3 to 10. So it's a very strange draft. I don't really know if I have many dreams for the Brewers sort of in the back half of the first round, but I'm sure Scully and I will be hopping on FaceTime or texting or, in touch in some regard on Sunday, which is really sneaking up on us.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Changing gears to the top of another draft, Shane Smith was drafted 1-1 in the Rule 5 draft this winter and is the second ever player to make the All-Star game the year following his Rule 5 selection. We sort of quizzed each other on this one. Scully, I know you know, but I'm going to give just a brief moment, the only silence that I'm not going to edit out of this podcast ever, to let folks think about who was the second one. So maybe I'll give you a 5-second countdown. 5.
I'll fill that time by saying I really thought I was going to get you on that. When I asked the question, I thought it was going to take even a second, but no, you had it instantly. So hopefully that gave our audience a chance to think on it.
Yeah, I was going to count him down, but you filled the air well. This was a player my dad used to make fun of his name all the time, which is why he sort of burned in my memory. It's Dan Ugla. He was the first one to do it, and Shane Smith following closely behind, or not that closely, but he's the second one to ever do it, which is cool. And the Rule 5 draft is cool. It sucks that Shane Smith was in the Brewers system, and I do have to credit. Was a fella in my Twitter DMs for about a year saying you have to keep an eye on this guy Shane Smith in the Brewers system. He's really good. I think they could stretch him out as a starter. You need to just pay attention to what he's doing. And I sort of half-heartedly heeded the call, and boy, he hit that one out of the park.
Wow, that guy knows ball, or girl. really knows ball. But Shane Smith, Dan Ugla, forever married in history, at least for now, making the All-Star game right after the Rule 5. That's awesome.
Part of me wonders if it was a family member of Shane Smith. There was no identifying information on this. I've gone back several times to see, like, are they only posting about Shane Smith? No,
Right.
Pretty normal social media behavior outside of DMing me like every 4 weeks saying Shane Smith, he's the real deal. So I don't know. It could be, a familial sort of hype train going on here, but have the faith, I guess.
A funnier outcome would have been it being Shane Smith's burner.
Yes,
that would have been my ideal sitcom outcome. But anyways, we persist. So the next one, little contentious between the two of us on how we're going to phrase this. But I had added to the agenda that Zach Wheeler threw a near perfect game this weekend. And it kind of went under the radar because it was broken up in the 5th inning. He ended the game with, I think, it was double-digit strikeouts, and just the one hit, which was an Austin Hayes opposite field home run, which was only a home run in 14 of the 16 ballparks. So the tweet that kind of spurred this bullet was he was one pitch away from a perfect game. Now, the fact that it occurred in the 5th inning is where the classification of near perfect game was kind of drawn between us. I think that fits the definition. Beck disagrees.
I don't know if I can disagree in stronger terms. It's not a near perfect game. There was no suspense. It was over in the 5th inning. That's not even late enough for you to get a banner on the MLB app saying no hitter or perfect game. It's close. It definitionally close to a perfect game, but it was not a near perfect game. That's something I feel very strongly about. My dad, if he had a microphone in front of him and we're on this call, would say close only counts in hand horseshoes and hand grenades. Yep. Is the turn of phrase. And you know what? I have to agree with him on this one.
That's totally fair. I was watching the game recap and then it popped up the line and I was like, holy crap, he almost had a perfect game by the box score. But yes, he was never really flirting with said perfect game. He just threw a complete game in which he only gave up one hit. And that hit happened to clear the fence. So
the other, and this is more of a vibes-based argument, but it's very hard for me to consider something a near perfect game. One, when it happened in the 5th inning. Two, when there's an earned run on the ledger. Very, very rarely do we get to the point where it's a near no-hitter the way that I would describe, and they end up allowing an earned run.
Well, that's why the fact that it was an opposite field home run in wouldn't have been a home run in over half of the ballparks kind of alluded to that as well. It was really unlucky that he didn't get to flirt with a perfect game.
Well, I don't know, man. You give up a home run. I don't know if you can call that unlucky. It doesn't. I mean, I know every ballpark's different and what have you, but I think this is just something we're going to have to disagree or agree to disagree on or disagree to agree on. But sound off in the comments. I'm very curious to see how our listenership feels about whether or not this was a quote near perfecto.
I'm going to get cooked in the comments. That's okay. Moving on to the upcoming kind of week of news. We'll look forward to the All-Star Week schedule. Want to make everyone aware of some news and some dates coming up. So tweet we saw right before this, there was some shuffling of places in the futures game. Sakura, Painter, and Wiggins are out. And they are being replaced by Clemmy, Herrera, and Harris. Really anticlimactic group of names to read off to follow those 3 heavy hitters. But, we haven't heard any sort of official injury news, if anything, so we're not going to speculate on why those guys were removed. Just going to be sad that they are not going to participate in the futures game as 3 arms that the NL was certainly looking to debut and to show there. We were looking forward to watching as well.
Yeah, I hate to immediately prove you wrong, but I am going to speculate on why they're pulled. I'll start with Painter just to cut the suspense. I don't have anything on Painter. I don't know why he's not pitching. There's no real smoke about an injury outside of him being removed from the roster. Wiggins hasn't pitched since June 20th. I don't have much intel beyond that, but that would seem to suggest to me that he's not in shape to throw. Sakura, he threw 1 inning in his last outing and it was removed pretty unceremoniously. He did strike out 3, but his fastball velocity was down at the end of that inning. And so people were already sort of speculating. I think this just adds fuel to that sort of fire. So if I were a betting man, I would say, Sikora and Wiggins, that is Travis Sikora of the Nationals and Jackson Wiggin of the Cubs, probably have something going on. I'm not going to go out and say, I think this is a severe injury because we haven't heard anything. And we've heard nothing at all about Painter. So no real intel on that front. Him, I will not speculate about, but there are reasons to think that maybe something's going on with Travis Sikora and Jackson Wiggins.
Hey folks, Beck in post. I wanted to update here after speculating on Travis Sikora's absence from the Futures game. We did get some intel after the podcast ended from Sikora himself that it is not anything serious. It is simply precautionary. So some good news on Travis Sikora. Unclear what the situation is with Jackson Wiggins. I have not heard anything further on that front.
Yeah, puts a little bit of a damper on that Futures game, which will take place on Saturday. I don't have the time right in front of me, but I believe it's late afternoon. So we'll be tuned in for that. And then Sunday is the MLB draft. We obviously kicked off with a little bit of draft convo. We'll plan on doing a little bit of a retro on that on our next week's episode, along with the Futures game. Any headline or, guys that caught our attention, any picks that we thought were especially interesting, maybe focus on our 2 ball clubs and talk about it there. But then you got the Home Run Derby on Monday. The field is almost complete. I believe 5 names have been announced, and the one that it's a fun field so far. But one that I thought was interesting was O'Neal Cruz. Just the idea of him hitting 115-mile-per-hour taters to the outfield. They might take the kids off the field when he steps up to the plate just to protect them.
I was trying to stifle laughter. The show sheet, I didn't see this until right now. He has Monday, 7:14, Home Run Derby, and then a parenthetical that just says O'Neal Cruz might kill a kid.
Out of context, it's a very tough phrase, but he might.
He might. Yeah. I mean, I've watched every Home Run Derby since I can remember. And we go to the AFL Home Run Derby, and these kids, man, they are not coordinated enough to handle the ball off of the bat. The other thing is we've thrown around these hypotheticals. What if you let them do the Home Run Derby with a metal bat? I think certainly you have to take the kids off of the field for that, because a baseball going that fast, we joke, lethal.
Absolutely lethal.
So, anyway, we're hoping for everybody's safety. I need to pull it together because that really caught me off guard.
But yeah, only 5 of the 8 names. I believe they're still doing 8. I don't know when they would have changed the format, but it's really exciting right now. Ronald Acuna Jr., James Wood, Cal Raleigh, I believe the MLB leader in home runs, O'Neal Cruz, and did I say Byron Buxton?
You did not.
Then that's him. That's the 5th one. And I liked the story that I saw around his participation. It sounds like his son is far more excited about it than he is. Obviously, Buxton's been excited to do this, but his son has just been dying to bring him the Gatorade and a towel during the Home Run Derby. That's just the thing he's been hoping to do. So be on the lookout for that. Be an exciting moment for the Buxton family. And we'll keep our eyes out for the final 3 participants there. And then Tuesday kind of caps everything off is the All-Star game, which will probably be going on while we record. I don't know why we would schedule around that. For me, that's the least exciting of all of the All-Star weekend festivities that I just outlined.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. The All-Star game, now that it doesn't determine home field advantage, which was weird to begin with, but now that it doesn't do that, there's really no stakes. I do appreciate that it's one of the only All-Star competitions out there where they're playing their sport to the fullest extent. The NBA All-Star game, not quite the same intensity. Obviously, the Pro Bowl is really nothing like a regular season NFL game. So I do appreciate that. Maybe we'll do a live stream or something to that effect, or at the very least, I will probably jump on the Dynasty Dugout Discord and voice chat and hang out for one of these events: Futures game, MLB Draft, Derby, or All-Star game. So we'll be doing some hanging. My wife is out of town this weekend, which works out pretty well for being a baseball degenerate.
Great weekend for you. It's almost like she planned around that for you. That's
She
really smart of
certainly
her.
did not, but I'm it's a happy coincidence that I'll take to the bank.
Man, home run or All-Star weekend would have been kind of a fun idea for your bachelor party. I'm kind of upset we didn't think about that.
Yeah, I have to explain because I keep saying my wife and then bachelor party. And at some point, I've gotten some weird looks from coworkers and what have you. My wife and I got married in a courthouse ceremony last fall. We are doing a reception. So, last year was just very, it was immediate family only. It was about 10 people in total. And so we had just bought a house and wanted to save some money before we threw the big party for everybody. And so we'll be doing sort of a renewal of vows and a reception. And I'm very much looking forward to it. But that also means neither of us had a bachelorette party. I don't know if definitionally those still hold if we're technically legally married. So we might have to call it something else. But in any event, I am home alone this weekend while my wife is out doing hopefully not true bachelorette stuff. She's camping. It'll be fun.
I'll have to rethink how I'm going to do all the merch. I had bachelor on everything, but I'll think of something.
Yeah.
So yeah, All-Star weekend and Beck's weekend home alone.
Yes.
Happy coincidence.
That'd be great. I'm going to have the best time ever. We have some national holidays and their associated prospect comps. We did 2 separate holidays here. I am going to read all 3 just because one of them I think deserves some attention. Today's national holidays, that's Tuesday, July the 8th, are National Raspberry Day, National Cow Appreciation Day, and National Freezer Pop Day. Scully, who'd you go with and why?
I did not do cow appreciation because I felt like there was going to be some inherent body shaming potentially going on there. So I stayed away from that. And I really liked the idea you had for Freezer Pop Day. So I let you run with that unique idea. I took Raspberry Day. And I went a little bit more creative than I have before. I was looking for a prospect who has letters or a letter in their name that isn't pronounced or is kind of forgotten, like raspberry. You don't usually say the P unless you're mispronouncing it. So that made me come across Josh Adamczewski. Hopefully that's the right pronunciation. That's just the one that's been agreed to on this podcast. But he's a shortstop prospect in the Brewer system down at low A. I was shocked to hear to read that he was a 15th rounder in the 23 draft because of how much buzz had been around his name the last 2 years. Seems to have a fun power speed combo based on the tools. Pretty far out, a 2028 or longer ETA. But he's been tearing up low A this year in 24 games. He's got that 3.45 slash line, 360 average, 450 on base, 539 slug, couple home runs, couple triples, and the strikeout 25 to 14 walks. So doing a lot of things right, kind of a name that I've heard with some helium the last couple of seasons. So he's my comp for Raspberry Day.
I love that. Quick plug for the YouTube. If you are wondering how in the world do I spell Adamczewski, and I'm only guessing at the pronunciation here. This is not one I was able to find online. I will say maybe, being German and from Wisconsin might help with some of these sort of Baltic pronunciations, but I'm guessing on YouTube, on the video, we are starting to implement, we'll have player names on the screen as we talk about them. So if you're wondering how to spell that, I will spell it for you, or you can go to YouTube and check out the video where the player names are pretty clearly there. I like it because when I'm watching back and I might only want to listen to a breakdown of 1 or 2 players, I can pretty easily find it in sort of the viewfinder combing through the video. So if that's your cup of tea, come find us on YouTube at Prospect Promotion Incentive. His last name is spelled Adamczewski. It's a shortstop in the Brewer system, like Scully said. He was on that sort of vaunted Carolina Mudcats team. He had an injury that held him out from May 3rd. He just returned to rehabbing on July 1st. He's played 4 games in the Arizona complex, has picked up a couple of hits. Obviously, some rust there. Also, he is playing primarily second base. Some of that might have initially had to do with both Luis Pena and Jesus Mate being on the roster. And them trying to shuffle sort of the DH role across those 3. I think he is probably not a shortstop. They also have in the system Cooper Pratt, who won a minor league Gold Glove at shortstop last year. So, in terms of viability, his easiest path is probably going to be at either second or third. I have not seen him play third. I have seen some film of him playing second. Looks smooth like a former shortstop would. Also, I'm sort of, and we'll talk a little bit about this later in the pod, but I'm sort of thinking about where do I want my fantasy production to come from? Shortstop is one of the more saturated positions out there, especially in shallow leagues. It's really easy to get, a passable shortstop, pretty much at any point in a startup draft. Second base is a little tricky. Second base is tough right now. And so when we have standout bats at that position, that might actually make them a little bit more valuable. Where if I were an MLB GM, I want guys to stay at shortstop for as long as possible. And even more so if I'm considering trading them. I'm not saying the Brewers are. They've been playing him at second base anyway. But if you can play a competent shortstop, that does make you more valuable for real baseball.
I'll add on. I think third base is really difficult right now in the fantasy and real life landscape. A lot of rumors around a lot of playoff contending teams needing third basemen, and there's not a lot of them on the market. It drops off from guys like Eugenio Suarez and then to Brian Hayes, and those guys are on very different levels of playing field. So, second base, third base, both pretty scarce right now when it comes to fantasy and real life.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's just a little bit of a different take on positional eligibility. I actually kind of like to see this from Adamczewski. That said, it does leave him just a little bit less rope on the defensive spectrum. I'm not saying he's going to slide down so far that he needs to play first base, but that's kind of the thing that you watch for. That's usually only a problem with bulkier third basemen or corner outfielders who don't move very well. Maybe eventually they end up at first base, in which case your bat really needs to do a lot of the talking. And I'm not quite there with Adamczewski yet. He is one of my favorite sort of deeper league buys, I would say within the top 200 or top 250. If that's how deep your league goes, might be a guy worth paying attention to. For my national holiday, I went with National Freezer Pop Day. So we're doing no cow appreciation today. I sort of appreciate your instinct to shy away from the body shaming where we can, although I do make jokes at your expense all the time about Moises Ballesteros. We're going to hold off today. I didn't say anything bad about him today.
That was just a crazy stray. What the hell?
He actually, for what it's worth, Ballesteros dropped a ton of weight last year. He used to be far heavier than he is now. He looks much more athletic. I don't know that really changes his defensive outlook, but good for him. Him and I both on a weight loss journey recently.
And that's us not commenting on his body. Good job.
That was a lot of not commenting on his body. Okay, so for Freezer Pops Day, I took this the direction of I'm looking for cold weather homers. So who hit the most home runs in the month of April in the coldest location? So I had to jump over a number of players to get this done. I had to jump over Tim Elko, who played in Charlotte. I had to jump over Otto Kemp and a handful of others. So I took a guy tied for second in home runs in the month of April, who played in St. Paul, where the average temperature in April is 41 degrees. That is Carson McCusker. He is enormous. He hits the ball very hard. He does not hit the ball all that often. He, to me, feels like 80% of Matt Wallner. He did come up for 5 games. He had 6 plate appearances with the Twins earlier this year. He slashed 167, 167, 167. It was just, one single and 6 plate appearances.
Well, I could have figured that out.
Well, for the less, attuned to how these stats shake out. It was 1 single, 4 strikeouts and 6 plate appearances. There's a lot of hit tool risk with him. He is very exciting from a power perspective, but sort of a liability in terms of swing and miss and plate discipline. So, but he is our freezer pop king for 2025.
Absolutely. And I love a good freezer pop. That was a staple in the freezer growing up.
Yeah, I'm kind of a fanatic. One of the things that I do to try not to snack sort of late at night, my wife and I have very different sleep schedules, so I'm up for 2 hours after she is, and unsupervised is not great. Is the 2-calorie freezer pops. I hammer like 5 of those. And I know it's sugar water, but come on, it's 10 calories. It'll be fine. So kind of a weight loss hack for those of you out there. Just have a bunch of sugar water right before bed.
There you go. That's a hack.
It could be so easy. Okay. From there, we're going into the top performers from last week. This is truly last week. Today is Tuesday. Last week we recorded on Thursday. That was kind of weird because we had several games in that week already under our belts. This is the week prior. This is June 30th through July the 6th. Our top hitter of the week. Oh, wait a second. I messed up the banner.
I noticed, but
Josh Adamczewski was not our hitter of the week, but I did just have his player card up. The hitter of the week was Robert Calaz, who I do not have a player card for. So, we're getting better at this. 10 episodes in, we keep finding new ways to make mistakes. Our hitter of the week is Robert Calaz in the Rockies system, playing with Fresno. Last week, he was 9 for 21 with 4 homers, a double, 4 runs scored, 8 RBI, and 4 strikeouts to 3 walks. Really, the story of Robert Calaz this year is his contact rate is way up. It was around the mid-60s in 2024, both between the complex and a short sample in single A. This year, he's hitting the ball just as hard. He's doing just as much damage. He's never really had problems with putting the ball in the air or to the pull side. The problem was he just wasn't putting the bat on the ball all that often. And when you see that at the lower levels of the minors, hit tool collapse becomes just a massive, massive sort of orange flag. It's not on fire, but he did miss my top 100 in the offseason almost exclusively because of this bat to ball issue. That his overall contact rate is up to about 72% on the year, which is a super meaningful improvement. He's not out of the woods. He's never going to be Tony Gwynn or Luis Ariz or anybody of that ilk, but he hits the ball extremely hard. Last year, his 90th percentile exit velocity was just under 110 miles an hour, which would be a top 5 figure in Major League Baseball. I have, some concerns about the veracity of that figure, but even if it was 107, it would be an extreme outlier in terms of raw power potential. And if he's making even 70% contact as he continues to progress, this is a dangerous hitter. And so I'm kind of back in on Robert Calaz. If this continues to even improve, I think we start having conversations about Robert Calaz as a top 50 prospect. And it was just a tremendous week. He, when he's going well, he's going to rein in home runs.
Yeah, he's one of the biggest, the separations between your ceiling and your floor type of prospects. The difference in those outcomes is almost entirely hinging on that hit tool. And he, was a guy that had some very worrisome flags last year, but you can't deny what he does when he makes contact with the ball. So very fun, exciting prospect. I feel like the Rockies pop up one of these every so often. One of these guys that massive ceiling. And if they put it all together, you can dream on a really, really fun profile in Colorado. But he's got a long way to go from low A to eventually make it there. So hopefully the improvements continue.
Yeah, and they need to figure out how to get these guys to translate to Major League Baseball because, I think Yanquiel Fernandez was this guy for a little while. Ezequiel Tovar, obviously a different shape of the profile. And that hasn't totally translated offensively. Yeah, you can see where it might click. He's still extremely young. Same kind of deal with Ariel Amador. It hasn't totally translated. Jordan Beck has been pretty good this year, but he struggled initially. And, I'm not totally sure how much of this I'm buying. Just a lot of these sort of scenarios. And it doesn't stop with the bats. You would imagine they would have a little bit smoother sledding. But Chase Dolander, he was optioned back to AAA. It has been a rough go for him. His stuff kind of backed up at the big league level. So for, as much credit as I'm willing to give the Rockies on having at least one sort of, hyper interesting guy at any given time, they haven't really panned out for much at the big league level yet. And so I think they need to figure out what that's all about.
And I think the fact that you didn't even mention Zach Veen tells you everything you need to know about that situation. So not even top of mind anymore.
Yeah, I think Zach Veen, there was a lot of interest in him sort of before, I think, public analysis of prospects included underlying data. Before we had access to sort of StatCast in the Florida State League and in AAA. and even privately sourced StatCast. Once that sort of came to light, I think a lot of people jumped off. And then, of course, he had issues with both performance and injury. And so he is a little bit of a forgotten man. But in any event, this is a very positive development for Robert Calaz. Our pitcher of the week is Ryan Johnson. You might remember him from being not so good in the Angels bullpen to open the year. It was, as you can imagine, an extremely expedited sort of runway for him to get to Major League Baseball. He was drafted just last summer. He made 0 appearances in minor league baseball before he made his debut in the Angels bullpen. And I sort of understand. I mean, I don't understand putting him in MLB immediately, but I sort of understand making him a reliever. I think evaluators are very split on whether or not this is a starter or a reliever profile. He has plenty of pitches, but it's really east-west. He only has 2 dominant ones. Not even dominant. The fastball has some arm side run and is maybe average or above average. The slider is very good. And so, we hear a lot about 95 and a slider. That's essentially what he was coming out of college, although he has a broader arsenal than that. Since being demoted, not even demoted, but just sent to high A, he has been absolutely spectacular. He's pitched to an ERA under 2. He struck out like 33% of batters faced, and he's looked really good in a starter's role. His last outing, what landed him on the 3 cap this week, was a 9-inning shutout. 1 hit, no walks, 12 Ks. Scully would call this a near perfect game.
I was waiting for you to say it.
I don't know when the hit happened, so I can't really speak on that. If it happened in, say, the 8th or 9th inning, yeah, I'd give it to you. But if this was like a 2nd inning bloop single, nobody was sitting in the stand saying, holy cow, he almost has a perfect game going.
You know what's funny is I would have been, if we were doing the book at an AFL game as we usually do, I would have leaned over to you and said, hey, he's 1 square on here away from having a perfect game.
I'm sure you would. You are built different, constructed abnormally.
I'm glad that he was featured on here because I had actually made a bullet on the did you see this? And then in parentheses after said maybe 3 cap, which I don't know who I was writing that. I was writing that to myself. So I don't think you were going to read that and then go publish the 3 cap necessarily. But then I was just another example this week. From this past week of when our brains were very much in sync because we had to talk about this. But it's just such a classic Angels to overreact and then overreact to like, hey, this guy looks really good. Let's throw him in our bullpen. Oh, my God, he's so bad. Let's put him back in high A where he was probably going to be too good for the competition. So it's kind of like a go get your head right, strike out 12, throw a near perfect game, and then we'll move you on eventually. So I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about him getting promoted to probably AAA here soon with the way they're operating with him. But dominant outing nonetheless.
It is reminding me of Michael Scott, the snip snap. I think we referenced that with Kobe Mayo as well. But I'm buying Ryan Johnson here. I think it has looked really good as a starter. He's sort of proven that he can handle the length. He's gone, more than 6 innings in each of his last 4 starts. The stuff looks pretty good. I think if you just completely sort of memory hole the fact that he was not so excellent out of a bullpen role, this would be a pretty intriguing performance already. Anytime you throw I don't even want to call it a near perfect game. That sounds dirty to me now. Anytime you throw a 9-inning complete game shutout and strike out 12, you're going to land on some radars. And I like what he has going on here. He's a little bit funky. It's not the loudest stuff of all time, but the fastball and slider are enough to get him by. And I firmly have him on watch lists where he's not rostered. Maybe if he was dropped as a result of the demotion and sort of some underperformance while he was in that role. Okay, we move on to the Beck's buy. This is a player that I was unfamiliar with until very, very recently. This is Eddie Micheletti. I do not know if I am pronouncing that correctly. I will flash the name up on the screen. It is spelled EDDIE-MICHELETTI. I'm just assuming that's Micheletti and not Micheletti or something to that effect. He was an 8th rounder in 2024, last summer, out of Virginia Tech. He had transferred from George Washington. Last week, he went 11 for 22 with 3 home runs, 7 RBI, 2 doubles, 2 strikeouts, 2 walks. He's looked really, really good in high A. I think he's running like a 240 batting average, but in OPS in the mid 800s. He's been really unlucky on balls in play, but he's doing a couple of things well that I think warrant some attention. One, his approach is very, very sound at this level. We'll see if it gets challenged as he moves up, but he's only struck out 1 more time than he's walked, 16 to 15. He's also doing a great job of putting the ball in the air and to the pull side, which is going to help him sort of outrun what is looking like maybe average or a little bit above average exits. The reason he went in the 8th round was he was a true senior at draft time. They have very, very little negotiating power. There's nowhere for them to go if they don't sign besides independent ball. And so, teams can float these guys down draft boards, and he had some pretty good data after just 1 year at Virginia Tech. And so, to see that translate as a professional is exciting. I will also say, what a draft from the Blue Jays. This is looking sort of spectacular out of the gate. We have seen both Trey Savage and Cal Steven have, sort of awesome campaigns so far. And Eddie Micheletti is just another one to add there.
Johnny King as well.
Was Johnny King a 2024 draft guy?
Why did I think so? We don't have to scroll too far to find out.
I will pull up the Baseball Reference page. Yes, he was. He was their 3rd rounder. So how about that? 1, 2, 3, and 8 at least are big hits for them so far this year. Kudos to them. That is a spectacular draft so far. The early returns on that draft are very, very good. I think Micheletti should be a buy, within the top 250. Outside of that, I think it's okay to wait and see. I think we're going to learn more about him at AA. He is a little bit older because he was a true senior. So the age to level, he's not really going to pop on sort of those models, but it's hard to argue with the performance so far.
Yeah, we've had a really good run of success here recently, talking about guys from the 3-tap and then them getting promoted soon after. Micheletti feels like he could fall into that bucket, but was very much a who when I read his name in there. So great shout on the buy potential there. And yeah, I just had to tip my cap as well to the Blue Jays, seeming like they're having a really good draft here.
I'm going to take just a moment to air sort of a personal frustration, and it's that on Monday morning, as I'm authoring the 3-cap, Chris is also often tapping away on his weekend sort of prospect roundup. And I tagged him in the Discord and I said, what do you got on Eddie Micheletti? Because I like what I'm seeing here. Sort of what does the underlying data look like? And he's like, oh, I'm writing about him right now. And Chris publishes before I do. So I don't get to take any of the credit on this, even though we're sort of on him at the same time. So not just me saying this guy might be interesting. It's also Chris. And I know a lot of you trust him more than you trust me.
Yeah, maybe he's co-signing that buy. I'll move us into some other top performers that I noticed from the 3-tap, 1 hitter, 1 pitcher. The first one here is a name that everyone should be familiar with. Prospect fatigue king, Everson Pereira, outfielder for the Yankees. He's at AAA. Had a stellar week. Now, I'll read the numbers and then I'll say, I'll put the caveat there. He was 10 for 23 with 3 home runs, a double, a triple, 7 runs, 11 RBI, and a bag. He struck out 4 times, walked twice. Now, almost all of that production came in the same game where he had a 2 home run cycle. So the double, the triple, 2 of those 3 home runs. But that game alone was going to be a call out for me in the did you see this anyway? So I'm glad that we get to talk about it here because other than that game, he still had a pretty good week otherwise. Now, a guy that's, like I said, prospect fatigue. He's been in the minors for a long time. He's fallen into that kind of Andujar, Clint Frazier bucket where he's in every Yankees mock trade, but they just can't seem to trade him or maybe don't want to trade him. But the surface numbers look good this year. It's an 864 OPS. He's got 15 home runs. If you just take those 2, float that out as trade bait, you're going to get some bites. However, when you look under the hood, he's still striking out at a 32% rate. He's a 58% contact rate, and I asked Beck to fact check that for me because I pulled it from I think the same sources you probably did, but I didn't believe it when I saw it. Shocked by that, and a 48% ground ball rate as well. Those 3 together, kind of a worrisome trio behind those surface stats.
Yeah, I don't know that there's enough hit tool here. Maybe I can steelman the argument for it. He is swinging a lot in the zone. He's swinging 73% of the time in the zone. That is pretty great. And when he swings in the zone, he's at least making sort of passable contact. It's around 71%. That's right on the danger zone, but for a guy who hits it that hard, maybe reasonable. The downside of that is he chases a lot. It's at 30.5% so far this year, and he very rarely makes contact on those swings. They are often quite ugly, which brings his total contact down to that 58% figure. And so, it really comes down to, for him at least, can he clean up some of the swing decisions there, given the power that he has, that he can tap into at any given moment? And I think the Yankees are really into this sort of boom or bust profile. It just needs to boom every once in a while. We're seeing it with Spencer Jones, of course. He's sort of the poster child for this. But you did call out, a few others from Yankees past, and this looks like it's trending in that direction. Where, man, I don't know if he has enough bat to ball to be the sort of player we thought he could be when he broke out in the complex in 2021 and into 2022.
Yeah, so quick pivot from a buy to someone who we're absolutely not recommending you buy. I certainly wouldn't, but it was important to call out. He did have a stellar week, highlighted by that one massive game. So he showed that upside, but obviously has a lot of red flags along the way. The other guy I wanted to highlight was Brody Hopkins, right-hander for the Rays down at AA. He was one of the two pieces in the Randy Arozarena trade from Seattle last deadline, I believe. And it's looking like a real win-win deal so far. It was Aiden Smith was the outfielder that came along with Hopkins. Obviously, it's tough when you lose an all-star, perennial all-star like Arozarena and a guy with a really proven track record in the playoffs, but they got a really good return here. And Hopkins had a really good week and has put together a pretty good season. This past week, he went 7 innings, gave up 5 hits, 1 earned run, 0 walks, and 9 strikeouts. There's a good crop of guys from the 3-tap this week. But I especially wanted to highlight Hopkins because that 0 walks is a big deal for him. Obviously, just in one outing. Otherwise, he's averaging like 3 or 4 in most of his outings, but he was truly dominant, kind of showed off that stuff. On the season through 16 games, he's got 78 2/3 innings at a 3.43 ERA, and he struck out 94 to 41 walks. So the walks aren't a problem. They are definitely the worrisome part of his profile, but he has reined them in a little bit better this year. But he's a guy that's still relatively new to pitching. He was a two-way guy for a while, and I think it was right before his draft year, coming out of his draft years, when he started focusing on pitching solely. So he's still in like year 2 or 3 of being just a pitcher, and there's a lot of upside to be excited about here, especially being in the Rays system.
Yeah, Brody Hopkins has one of the most fun fastballs in the sport to watch. I think if you are going to boot up the futures game, which he will pitch in, his sort of pitching breakdown, I'm sure Thomas, TJ Stats on Twitter, will put out sort of a Stuff Plus card, assuming that we have all the StatCast data for that, and people are going to drool over it. He has had, to your point, some issues with command. He was he has very rarely had a walk rate under 10% in his minor league career. It sits at 12.2% so far this year in AA. That is in the danger zone. Those are Jacob Misiorowski numbers, sort of in parentheses derogatory. When Misiorowski's not going well, he's walking 12 to 14% of batters. Hopkins has no problem striking people out with that fastball, but he has plenty of sort of issues with issuing the free pass. The one thing I'll say is, he is one worth tuning into for the futures game because his pitch level data is going to be really fun to dissect, primarily the ride he gets on that fastball.
Yes, I will absolutely be tuned into his inning.
I think I'll be tuned into all of them, but maybe I'll put my phone down when he's pitching.
Yes, or pitch it up, take a video, either one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, everybody loves a good video of your TV screen. Okay, we're going to move into the promotions segment. We have 3 of them to MLB. We're going to start with Cam Schlittler. That is Schlittler. It is on the screen now on YouTube. He was the corresponding move for Clark Schmidt. Some unfortunate news for him. Elbow started barking. He is going to go under the knife and have Tommy John surgery. I have not sort of followed up to see if that is traditional Tommy John or the internal brace. Sort of a side note here, I am kind of interested to see how the data shakes out on how well internal brace holds up. It does obviously help players return to action more quickly, but there just isn't a large enough sample size of that particular kind of UCL repair. He is expected to debut tomorrow, July the 9th. In 15 games between AA and AAA in 2025, he's thrown 76 and 2/3 innings to a 2.82 ERA, 99 strikeouts in that time to 26 walks. He was sort of roughed up in AAA in his last start. He went 2.1 innings, 2 1/3, 7 hits, 6 earned runs, 1 walk, 2 strikeouts. That happens from time to time. I think Cam Schlittler is a guy where if this was 2022, people would be way in on him when the sweeper was in vogue. His is pretty firmly plus, as is his fastball. He's been a little unheralded for a couple of years now. Joined the Yankee system in 2022. And his stuff has really taken a step forward, headlined by that fastball and sweeper. And the sweeper, kind of sport-wide has lost some efficacy. Hitters are catching up to it. He doesn't really have much to neutralize the platoon. I would like to see a better pitch for neutralizing lefties. But an exciting move nonetheless. I would have had him inside my top 100. If I were to make a midseason update, I just like seeing pitchers make their major league debuts. It is always sort of a uniquely fun experience to watch these guys in a major league stadium.
Yeah, and as good of a season as he's had to this stretch, the injury bug really forced the Yankees' hand here. I'm not sure if they really wanted to promote him at this point. If they were, they don't have a whole lot of trade capital in that system. So I wonder if they were hoping they could keep him down there, keep juice in the AAA stats, make him more attractive. But now the cat's going to be out of the bag. People are going to see what he has at the big league level. And obviously that could bolster the trade profile, but they also might just need him now coming down the stretch here in a rotation and just pitching staff in general that is really banged up for the Yankees, a team that has postseason aspirations, even if they're kind of floundering right now in the East.
Yeah, I don't know if he is dispensable, to be honest with you. He's not the first candidate that I would point towards if the Yankees were to make a trade. My sort of pet project here has been that Spencer Jones might be on the move if they really want to upgrade somewhere. And then just, sort of appending a previous note, hitters are faring worse off of him as a lefty. That is to say, left-handed hitters are performing worse than righties. So maybe my sort of fears about, how he will deal with major league lefties are a little bit unfounded. I will say, the OPS against these are not world beating numbers. Righties are OPSing 645. Lefties are OPSing 625. And major league hitters are famously better than AA and AAA hitters. So we'll see how it goes, but I like Schlittler. I wish him the best. Who does he have tomorrow? Who are the Yankees playing right now?
That's a really good question. I will figure that out.
Okay.
Hopefully
we will return. Sorry, what was that?
So hopefully it's a soft landing, but they get the Mariners. So
okay,
we'll see about that.
Yeah, the Mariners, not a world beater offense by any means, but a few bats that can certainly rough you up along the way. It really sort of depends on whether or not Cal Raleigh is having a big day.
Yeah, and it's at Yankee Stadium, so lefties are going to have an advantage anyway. So we'll pay attention to that one, see how that one goes for him.
And, Raleigh will be hitting as a lefty against him. So
as he tends to do.
If he can just escape Cal Raleigh 3 times without getting touched up, he might have a chance here.
Yeah, might go all right for him. The next guy we've got here, another name that we've talked about recently on the pod, Joe Boyle got that promo, right-handed pitcher for the Rays. I didn't realize, and maybe I don't know if we talked about it last time, I didn't realize he was 6'8", 250. I guess it makes sense why he brings the heat, but that is absolutely what he's known for. Was tearing up AAA this year through 15 games. It was 73 innings at a 1.85 ERA. 96 strikeouts to 31 walks, and a sub-1 whip, assuming he might still go back to AAA. But if the whip ended at 0.99 in AAA, that would be very aesthetically pleasing for someone like me. But in 2 MLB starts this year, he's been dominant. The first one came in, I believe, April, kind of a spot start that they needed. But his 2 starts this year has been to 10 innings, 2 hits, no runs, 3 walks, and 14 strikeouts. So his big issue, I guess, if you will, has been the command, and he's absolutely reined that in this year to be much more palatable and even successful. So Joe Boyle is up. We'll see for how long, but his 2 starts this year have been really, really good.
Yeah, he's been great. I will just, small correction, he has allowed 3 runs. None of them have been earned.
Yes.
He did appear, he pitched innings 3 through 8 against the Twins on Sunday and looked pretty excellent. He walked just 1. He struck out 7. He allowed 1 run. It was not earned. And so he has, an ERA of 0 on the year. His FIP sits at 1.49 so far. Really exciting arm if he's continuing to throw strikes. I think there aren't very many minor league arms that I would take over Joe Boyle. That I would take over Joe Boyle. He is at the top of my list of guys that are interesting and might still be relatively free.
Yep.
Okay. We have one last one, and this is a little bit of a joke that he's on here. It's Andrew Vaughn. Brewers' huge haul in the Aaron Savali trade, made his Brewers debut. He hit a home run in his first at bat off of Yoshinobu Yamamoto. It was a 3-run homer. Rhys Hoskins is on the IL. It sounds like it's an August return, so there might be some serious runway for him. Obviously, that's abbreviated with the All-Star game coming up, sort of All-Star week. These guys will have off. Even still, you're looking at a sort of 3-week runway split between him and Jake Bauers at the first base position. Since the Brewers acquired him, he's played 16 games. He's slashing .259, .338, .500 with 3 homers, 16 RBI, 3 doubles, and 13 strikeouts to 7 walks. So he's been pretty good since he's been in the Brewers system. I don't know if they figured something out with him. Pretty unlikely that they would do so in the span of such a short time, but maybe there's some value left in that bat. People forget he was the 3rd overall pick several years ago.
I think you fixed him. I think the power of friendship and that witch magic that the Brewers have going on has fixed him, and he's going to be that dude now.
Well, when you don't have money, you got to rely on other things.
Blood magic. Yep. Best alternative to money. Quick fun addition there. But I'll move us into our AAA promos. We got 2 of them. And this is the AA ones are very fun, but this is a close second, I'd say. JJ Wetherholt promoted to AAA in the Cardinals system, shortstop. He was the 7th overall pick in last year's draft out of West Virginia. And it was seen as a steal at the time, and now in hindsight, absolutely was a steal because he was in the 1-1 mix for most of that season. Some injury concerns kind of pushed him down the board, and of course, he fell right into the Cardinals' lap. He did skip high A entirely after tearing up low A in a 29-game sample last year, but has been faring very well at AA this year. The 3.44 slash line. He was hitting 300. 425 on base with a 466 slug. And he had 7 home runs, 14 doubles, 14 bags, and he was walking more than he struck out, 40 strikeouts to 44 walks. So the question marks and why he was, besides just the injury, why he was sliding down draft boards was kind of around his ability to impact the ball. Really good back to ball, really good hit tool, good decisions at the plate, and it was just going to be, is he going to hit the ball over the fence enough and really be that slugger to fit that profile? But so far, he's put a lot of those questions to the side.
I was pretty high on JJ Wetherholt coming into the year. I had him inside my top 20 in the offseason book. You said it really well. Excellent hit tool, great swing decisions. I think it's above average sting in the bat. He had sort of plus raw juice in college, translating that to the wood bat. It's maybe average or above average with wood. My concerns with him were really, it had to do with the hamstring strain. It was a grade 3 strain, which is a full tear of the lateral portion of the muscle. I didn't know, to what extent that would hamper his athleticism. He was a pretty good runner before the injuries his platform year at West Virginia. And yeah, there were some questions about how much sort of raw power he'll get to. I think, maybe he's a predominantly doubles hitter, but really good at using all fields, can get the ball in the air a fair amount. Not the sexiest player of all time, but I think he's going to be a really good big leaguer for a long time. And, it sort of pains my soul that the Cardinals got him at 7th overall when he was rumored to be in the 1-1 conversation. And he's playing like a top 15 prospect in the sport.
Yes, he will be haunting us for years to come.
Also, bonus, JJ Wetherholt, fun fact. He went to high school with Will Bednar. Bednar went on to be the 14th pick in the 2020 draft. Typically, if you are drafted in the first half of the first round, you're probably going to be the highest drafted player from your high school baseball team. JJ Wetherholt kind of stole that throne from Will Bednar. So just a totally stacked roster he was on in high school. Okay, our second AAA promotion is Robby Snelling. Remember him? All the rage in 2023, including me. I was all over Robby Snelling as a breakout pitching candidate. Left-handed pitcher in the Miami Marlins system. He was the 39th overall pick in 2022 out of high school, but his bonus was sort of a back half of the first round. It was around the equivalent of the 24th or 25th pick slot value. He was acquired or sent to Miami in the Tanner Scott deal at last year's deadline. He really struggled through the 2024 season. I don't know if we want to say this out loud, but it might have been the yips. He sort of lost his command. He had a real firm grasp on the zone and locations in 2023. He sort of, that ability went away for a little while, and he seems to be back this year at AA. 14 games started, 72 and a third innings pitched, a 3.61 ERA, a 2.85 FIP, 85 strikeouts in those 72 and 1/3 innings, and 22 walks. That's a 28% strikeout rate and a 7% walk rate. I'm not sure what the timeline looks like here. There's no reason really for Miami to start his clock. But if he's pitching like this at AAA, there's a chance that they see what they have with him over a cup of coffee in September. It would be unsurprising to see him in the rotation pretty early in 2026. This is one of those situations where I think he controls his destiny here. There's not a ton of competition for innings out of the rotation. I don't know that there's a firm timeline for, when the Marlins figure to be competitive again. So they don't necessarily need to start his clock. They can say, look, you had some struggles in 2024. Let's let you figure it out. But exciting to see him sort of back in almost the form he was in 2023.
Yeah, the fish are fun right now. That lineup is scrappy. That's the most backhanded insult compliment way of referring to it. But they're a scrappy bunch. It's a young team, and I think you see a lot of pieces there for the future. And now it's kind of all about the rotation, how they can cobble that together. And I think Snelling could definitely factor into that, whether it's next year or even still this year.
Yeah, it could be really fun to have Yuri Perez and Edward Cabrera and Thomas White and Robby Snelling sort of all in the same rotation. I did not say Sandy Alcantara there because I don't know if he's on sort of borrowed time in Miami. They're also enjoying a career year from Otto Lopez. Kyle Stowers looks like a difference maker with the bat. My favorite prospect, Agustin Ramirez, is hitting like he was in minor league baseball. He's becoming sort of a feared hitter in the league. I was just watching the Marlins broadcast earlier, and they were saying, like, how do you pitch to this guy? Some of that is because, there's not maybe a full book on him out yet, but some of that is because he's been legitimately dangerous with the bat so far. So I couldn't agree more. The fish are frisky.
Indeed. I'll move us into AA now. We've got 5 names left. 4 of them are coming at the AA level, and the next 3 are all Erie Seawolves. Am I right there? This is the
Correct.
Seawolves. Nice. Okay. The Tigers were active this week, kind of promoting their trio from High A, guys that were all kind of ready for a promotion, and they did all at the same time. So it was a lot of fun. I'll start off with Kevin McGonigle, kind of have them in, I think, rank order. So maybe this is going to be contentious, having McGonigle over Clark. They're close. But yeah, we'll talk about the shortstop first. He was the 37th pick in the 23 draft out of high school. He did get back end of the first round money. Similar story to Snelling, like we just talked about. And this guy's been tearing up high A. I think we talked about him in a hitter of the week segment in an earlier iteration of the pod. And it was, a very small sample size at that point, but the slash line is so comical. It's the rare 346 slash line, 372, 462, 648, 7 home runs, 19 doubles. Fun that all of these guys that we're going to talk about here have walked more than they struck out at the level this season. That's a good indicator that they're ready. They're more advanced than the level has to offer them at the moment. And Kevin McGonigle is the poster child for that. Let me pose this question before I turn it over to you. Would you say he has the best hit tool in minor league baseball?
Yeah, I would. I think there's a pretty salient argument for having Kevin McGonigle as the top prospect in the sport. Once Roman Anthony graduates, I think that will be the case at a number of publications. I have my suspicions that the Baseball Prospectus team will go that route. And I'll tell you this, it is not predicated on his ability to play a plus shortstop. I think he moves over. So this is not something where it's really a glove-driven profile. It is all coming with the bat. He was slugging way more than folks expected. Those 19 doubles in 36 games are doing a lot of the heavy lifting, but he also put 7 balls in the seats. 7 home runs over 36 games is pretty impressive. I think Kevin McGonigle is really setting himself up to be sort of the next best second baseman in baseball. It's a really rough position. We talked about that a little bit earlier with Josh Adamczewski. Kevin McGonigle, if you're getting that kind of production from the second base position, is, that's a huge boost to both your fantasy team, and is these guys moving as a pack is really exciting for Detroit. They own the best record in baseball right now, and they just moved 2, arguably top 10 prospects. McGonigle for sure. Some outlets will have Clark in it, some will not, but he's certainly close. And then, we'll save the last one as a surprise, but he's a guy that I would have in the top 40 as well.
Ooh, good tease. Sorry if I was distracting you there. Just one of the largest spiders I've ever seen outside my window, but just like dropped down and was just staring right at me. So that was scary for a second, but we'd move on to Max Clark.
I credit you for not losing composure. You were statuesque.
I was panicked.
You were panicked. Okay, we will go to Max Clark, who, of course, I sort of foreshadowed. He was also promoted to Double-A Erie. He was the 3rd pick in the 2023 draft. We talked a little bit about that earlier. He was given an underslot deal at 3rd overall, and they used the savings to buy McGonigle. So this is, we're talking about pool management really matters. I think that will be important in this draft. I don't know that there's sort of a cold weather prep that we are waiting out there, similar to McGonigle in this year's crop, but there are a number of interesting high school prospects that could be persuaded with a little bit larger check. In 68 games at high A this year, Clark is slashing 285, 430, 427 with 7 home runs, 2 triples, 12 doubles, 12 stolen bases, and 56 strikeouts to 65 walks. This is another great hit tool, a big OBP floor. I think questions also remain about how much impact he's going to get to. McGonigle has talked a fair bit about some changes that he's made in his approach. He is one of the best sort of follows on Twitter, where he will talk about his own game and about what he's learning and working on. And so he sort of writes his own scouting report, which is really interesting and really cerebral. He is also, this is a total aside, but he's one of the more famous players in minor league baseball. He has a huge social media following, was one of the first high schoolers to really grow sort of a personal brand before he went pro. He's slugging, about the same as his 34-game high A sample last year, but his average and OBP have ticked up. He's going to show up really high on real life lists, probably higher than I would have him for fantasy because he projects as a plus center field defender. He is very fast. This might also be a profile that plays better in rotisserie or categories than it does in points. Although I will say the on base floor here is really enticing, particularly if you play in a league that harshly penalizes strikeouts.
Yeah, Max Clark is definitely a guy you want on your real life team, and I'd take him on my fantasy team if anyone wants to send him my way. But is one of those guys that he does everything so well, and he's going to be a lightning rod on the field and off the field that you want Max Clark on your team. And so, yeah, moving these three guys together, but the note on their kind of how they're connected in the draft is just a masterclass on how you manipulate the pool, and they turned it into two arguably top 10 prospects. So Detroit stays winning.
Yeah, I think Scott Harris, he might, in my book, be the executive of the last 2 years, 3 years or so. The turnaround from where they were just a handful of years ago is pretty stunning. And the 2023 draft has a lot to do with how they are perceived right now. Being able to sort of manage your bonus pool in the way that they did was a masterclass.
Yeah, and also the way they got AJ Hinch was a little unconventional, but he's a top 5, top 3, maybe top 2 manager in the game. The way that he can influence, and you obviously saw it last year in the playoffs with Chaos. And so, yeah, nailed that hire at the big league level, and have just been doing really good stuff in the minors to keep kind of the engine churning. The last of this trio is Josue Briceño, first base and catcher prospect with the Tigers moving up. He was an $800,000 IFA signing in 22 out of Venezuela. Fun fact, the same hometown as Miguel Cabrera. So Tigers fans will absolutely appreciate that. Not sure if we've said that fun fact on the show before. But Briceño's been tearing up high A as well. 296, 422, 602 slash line over 55 high A games with 15 home runs, 13 doubles, 57 RBI, and just barely walking more than he is striking out, 41 to 40 respectively there. The profile has always leaned more power, at least power first, but his contact skills provide a really good floor as well. The last 2 seasons, he's had a strikeout rate sub 16%. So not a guy, if you look at him, you wouldn't expect him to have such good contact skills, but he does, and he pairs that with some pretty impressive pop as well.
Yeah, he is a sort of a big, strong, powerful. I'm just going to say first baseman because he will not catch at the big league level. Yeah. That's really the only thing keeping him outside of like top 25 prospect conversations is the fact that there's a lot of pressure on this bat to perform as he moves up, but all the ingredients are here. He hits the ball really hard. He has a great approach. He puts the bat on the ball. He looks the part. If we're selling jeans, I might point in his direction. He looks like he should hit the ball hard, and he follows through on the field. He was really, someone that got on my radar when his data was public in Lakeland in 2023. And then I saw him in the spring breakout in 2024. I believe he roped a double in that game. So I've been on him for a long time. And I think this is one of the better bats out there. One of the reasons why he'll be ranked a little bit lower is he doesn't bring a lot to the table as far as defensive utility is concerned. But
again, disclaimer, we don't care about defense in fantasy for those purposes. So go get him. That's a guy you want. Just to clarify, were you talking about selling him pants or about a eugenics situation?
This was definitely pants.
Okay. Jeans with a J. Got it.
Jeans with a J. Jeans like your grandma.
Okay.
Okay, we have 2 more promotions to get to. The last one is another promotion to AA. That is Jonathan Santucci, left-handed pitcher in the Mets system. He was a second-round pick last year. He was the Friday night starter for Duke last spring in 15 games at high A. It was 67 2/3 innings pitched for a 3.46 ERA, 75 strikeouts to 23 walks. He did sort of start out of the gate pretty rough, but has turned it around lately. His last few games have been the best stretch of strike throwing in his professional career. In June and July, it was 6 games, 31 and 1/3 innings pitched, a 1.74 ERA, 37 strikeouts to just 9 walks and a 1.02 whip. So he's been really excellent of late. Makes sense that he was promoted to Double-A. The Mets might be working some magic here. The thing to watch with him is whether or not he is locating his fastball. It's a pretty good pitch on pure shape, but his sort of defect at Duke was he didn't often know where it was going. That tide has turned a little bit. He's throwing strikes right around mid 60%, which is about what I look for, for average. I think he's good enough to get by with average command and control. He just needs to prove that these aren't temporary gains or, a run of strong performance that is immediately backed up as he's promoted. So he's another guy that if he's not rostered, this is probably a pretty good speculative ad. I think the Mets are a pretty good pitching development system. And this was a good landing spot for him. And it's sort of all coming together, 3 months into his 2025 season.
Yeah, you made the pitch well. Again, college guy, so someone that could move relatively quickly if those command concerns have truly been quelled, and he's figured that out. Guy that they could be pretty aggressive with. But we'll see what he's at Double-A now.
Yes, we will.
I'll move us into our final promo. It's to the high A level. We've got Aroon Escobar, second baseman for the Phillies. There's some different scatterings of where he plays. I saw second, short, and third kind of next to his name in a few different places. He's really only played second this year, so I'll get to that in a little bit. But he was a $450,000 IFA signing in 2022 out of Venezuela as well. His 69-game low-A sample this year had him slashing 285, 377, 452 with 11 home runs, 12 doubles, 10 stolen bases, 51 strikeouts to 32 walks. From what I can tell, I'm a little new on Aroon here, but it looks like a really well-rounded batting profile. No stellar, tool jumping out at you, but 50s across the board, plays really well. It's just the glove from an IRL purpose that's going to kind of hold him back. Is there any concern that he's already seemingly a second base only guy?
No, I kind of like that. And yeah. I might be the high man on Aroon Escobar. I really, really like what's going on here. I think he came into the year pretty under the radar because he repeated the Dominican Summer League. The track record on those kind of guys, not great. And his second go around there wasn't pretty. But he came over to stateside rookie ball and tore it up to over a 900 OPS. And then this year has been absolutely spectacular in the Florida State League, slashing 285, 377, 452. The underlying data, and maybe this is where I'll disagree with the 50s across the board, is he's running a 105 mile an hour, 90th percentile exit velocity. It's about a tick and a half above major league average. He is making contact on swings in the zone at an 88% clip. That is plus bat to ball. And he's chasing about 26% of the time. So as far as like the biggest building blocks of an analytic profile, it's all there. And he's still relatively young. I believe he is 20. Yeah, he turned 20 in January. And so there's room sort of for him to at least get into some grown man strength here and start to put more balls over the fence. He is maybe a little bit physically maxed. He's listed at 5'10", 180. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but that doesn't necessarily mean that your power ceiling is capped at, where you're at 20 years old. Hypothetically, your power peak comes in your late 20s between 27 and 30 years old. So I'm a big fan. I would have him within my top 40, potentially my top 30. Obviously a long path to go here, but he is being pushed now that he is stateside and is performing. So I look forward to seeing what he does in high A. And if he is for some reason not rostered in any of our listeners' leagues, just know that I'm valuing him like a top 40 prospect at present with room to grow.
Yeah, he's probably got too much helium so far this season to fall into the Beck's buy category, but sounds like even you're higher on him than some of the industry. So might be a guy that, like you said, if someone else in your league hasn't wised up to how valuable he is, could be a guy worth trying to acquire. But if someone has him, they probably know what they've got, and that might be a tough sell.
Yeah. This is if you're lucky enough to get him off the wire, I think.
Yeah.
Pat yourself on the back. This has been a fun episode of guys that I think I might be higher on than other people. Adamczewski is a player that I've had my eye on. Escobar, I would like to be the high guy, but that doesn't really matter. Having that label doesn't really matter that much to me. Josue Briceño is a guy that I've been on for a very long time. I think Jonathan Santucci, I've been sort of raising the alarm bells. He's appeared in 2-3 caps so far this year. And so this was a bit of a treat of an episode for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as well.
Good. Now on to the editing. Scully, it's been real. Appreciate you. Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.